The May 7, 2025 special meeting of the Administration and Finance Subcommittee, Subcommittee, is now called to order. May we please have a roll call? Who does that?
Mayor Pro Tem Simpson,
I'm here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I'm here too.
Okay. Mary Ann skipped the Pledge of Allegiance today. Do I have that discretion? Okay, let's just move on. May we please have a report on the posting of the agenda?
It was properly posted on May 5th, 2025.
Thank you. Doug, want to move to approve the
I'll
agenda?
make a motion to approve.
I'll second. You both in favor?
Both in favor.
Aye, okay. It's so ordered. Okay. New business. We will now hear item 6A. Is that right? There's nothing else in between?
Do we have public comment?
So I'm
For
looking
items
for it.
not on the
It's
agenda?
not on here. I'm looking. Yeah, it is on the agenda, so it's not on the script. Public comment for items not on the agenda. So we have two speaker slips. Ann Camarance, you're first. Actually, Joe's on free bid. So
Thank you very much for,
come to the middle so we can hear you, please.
okay,
Right here.
I don't want to be a mouse show. Thank you very much for allowing the public to attend. We've been having a bit of a difficulty attending public meetings recently. One thing is, we wouldn't be here if you guys were live streaming it for the public to see, even if it's as simple as one camera, and that way people who can attend it can review it without going through the lengthy process of a public records request. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's actually the only general public comment. So now we do go to the business on the agenda. And the first item is 3A, Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with Woodward and Curran. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. So, good afternoon, Council. At the April 24th meeting, or special meeting, I went over 5 different options for wastewater lines on PCH and damaged homes along there, and options to connect those properties to a system. At the conclusion of that special meeting, Council gave direction to look further into option number 4 was to connect those properties to Hyperion, and also form a ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee has been formed at the last council meeting, and we're proceeding forward on kind of setting up a subsequent meeting, probably the next week to first kick off that part. Also during that special meeting, there was discussion on what other help that we need to get started on this, and so this contract here would assist us with evaluating and doing a preliminary design report for feasibility to connect those properties along PCH to Hyperion. The consultant here is the same consultant that's doing phase 2, and is very familiar with doing the work that needs to put the wastewater line and do all this work. We're lucky we have them under contract, but it's something that we could amend their contract and get them going right away and start with the ad hoc committee. They're pretty important with this ad hoc committee, so they could provide some insight, provide some engineering input to the committee to make sure we're proceeding forward down that path. Cost for this work is $478, and that gives us a full preliminary design report, enough to get going and moving and giving council direction or information to make policy decisions on what to do forward. If perchance down the road we decide to pivot and not do this, or not do all of their contract, we can terminate this part of it when we want to pay the full amount of their work. So with that, I'm recommending that we proceed forward on the additional funding of approximately $271,000 to amend the contract to help us out.
Okay, thank you, Rob. we have no public speakers, so we're just discussing among ourselves. What's your thoughts?
Well, a couple of quick questions. I was surprised to see this without going out for proposals or bids.
Yeah.
I understand they're probably very well qualified. I'm not
Yeah.
questioning that at all. But we're okay with this process of just adding
Yeah.
on to the contract?
So the other option would be like late July until we get somebody. And so it was like we had them here, they're already doing the work, designing sewer systems on PCH and everything for phase 2. It made sense to kind of add that in there to do the work.
Okay. By the way, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I know that you guys are very happy with their work. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're following whatever procedure we need to follow.
Yeah.
Secondly, what if we decide that we don't want to do option 1, but we want to go to some other option
Yeah.
that we selected? How does that affect our bid?
So it gives us a little bit of flexibility if perchance we wanted to change direction and do something else too. We can amend this amendment and change our scope to include that language for that different option. So that's doable.
And $271,000, that seems like a lot of money to be spending on this. What are we going to get out of it? Is it going to be a full set of plans or what?
It's going to be almost to the full set of plans. It's going to be design report. It's going to be design layout, all the infrastructure kind of coordination, looking at where to put it on PCH, knowing all the utilities in there. So getting the alignments and getting a pretty much a rough draft of the plan and specs. So it gets us to the point to where they have to spend a little bit more to get to the final design, but that gets us very close.
And given the conversation we had in this exact room 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, what about the ultimate question of plugging into Hyperion or Sunset Mesa? Are they going to handle that connection?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're gonna go and, so myself and the consultant will go and collaborate with the county and LA City to make sure we got everything in place and put everything, and make sure we have all their approvals and get everything coordinated with them.
And state parks, because of what they want to do at Topanga, are they going to contribute to some of the costs?
So, yeah, they're very interested, and if we proceed forward with this, I can't say for certain, but they are very interested in seeing what they can do to kind of contribute and use this connection. They'd rather do this than putting in septic systems out there too.
So would it seem everybody else too?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Does Woodward and Cran have any potential financial interest in the success of the sewer project?
No.
I get that this needed to be done quickly and doesn't go through a regular process. I trust your judgment and experience. So the identity of the party isn't I accept, it's fine, the cost is fine. It's more than I would have thought it would be, but I get that it is what it is. I'm just going to say, this is solely to explore what we called option 4, right? The Hyperion option.
Right.
They're not going to do any work to explore the ones we aren't inclined to be pursuing at this time.
At this time,
Okay.
if that changes in any way.
No,
then-
I just want to make sure that they're not going to be exploring things we're not hiring them to explore.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I gotta say, because those other 3 to me are pretty much non-starters. This one, I will be shocked if we end up doing this. I would be shocked if we end up doing it in a time frame that will matter to the people on the beach who are going to be rebuilding. I believe we are, in essence, spending this money to come to the conclusion that we're not going to do it. But we owe it to the residents who lost their homes on the beach to spend this money to find out whether I'm wrong in my belief. Because we can't do it without the study. But I kind of feel like we're throwing the money away because I have a strong suspicion that when it's all said and done, we're going to come to the conclusion that this is not something we can do or that's going to make a major difference within the time frame necessary. But notwithstanding that, I'm inclined to support this proposal. So.
By the way, I share your concern that we're going to find out that it doesn't meet the 2 tests that I had. Is it affordable and puts a time frame?
Right.
But at the same time, I agree with you. If we don't do the due diligence on this, we haven't done our job.
Right.
Okay.
So just to kind of give you a little flavor of what some of the things I'm thinking doing is, because it's that time gap. it's the, what's that time gap where someone, hey, I'm ready, and they're not the sewer line's not ready. I'm looking at exploring different options of what can be done in that period, independent of the sewer line. Our consultant will be kind of doing that. I'm looking at different options to see and bring that up to the ad hoc and see what can be feasible.
Yeah, but that's a great, thank you for saying that. If you need to come back to us with a recommendation to take to the council for some other work that you need help with on how to make the existing structure work, you know,
Right.
how to get people back to their homes with septic systems,
Yeah.
the seawall issue, all that, to me, that's money even better spent, because I
Right.
suspect that's where we're headed.
And that's something that'll be part of that process. We'll be looking at that and seeing, okay, is it something too we can put money towards? So that's part of the process.
And I feel like we're giving you the resources to go come back with the best solution. And I once again, echoing Bruce on this, I think we want to make sure that you don't feel handicapped, that you didn't have the money or the resources to go down the best path. So feel free to come back to us, but at the same time, let's don't do anything stupid.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. Any objections?
Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Go hire them. Or amend their contract or whatever. All right, item 3B is review of proposed planning department fees for fiscal year 25-26. We do have one speaker, but I guess we should get a report first. And it doesn't have to be
Sure.
extensive.
It's a short report. Go. Right, so we're past the first slide. So this is your third bite at the apple. Started with Matrix with a big report that they gave to the council. At that time, we wanted to see more information on development fees, so you had a workshop. At that workshop, you asked planning to consider taking a look at rebalancing the fees such that the smaller projects were incentivized and the larger projects had full cost recovery share. So that brings us to this handy dandy little chart. I was able to get this from Matrix Consulting. This is their internal spreadsheet. If you start with this row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, and 5 is where the recommendations are. Column 3 is your current fee. Column 4 will be your recommended fee. And column 5 is the total cost of actually doing the work of these permits. And the difference is column 6. So let's go to the next slide. So yellow are the 22 areas in which we are recommending that you go after the full fee cost recovery. The pink are 7 areas where you could consider reductions. Those are the ones that really help those smaller projects. Number 3 is we've had discussions internally and also public comment regarding the appeal fee. It's one area in which you have the highest discrepancy in cost recovery. We did not touch it, that's your decision, but no, there's pull from the public in 2 areas on that. But we did want to say that there's another way to save money. It's not just dropping the fees. So next slide, please. So if you remember in the workshop, we took a look at 3 different types of projects and what happened during that review process in order to incur costs. So this is one of those examples was a house was remodeling their master bedroom. So our fee for planning is $397, but the cost to the entire permit is currently $1,375. That's because ESD is a reviewer to this particular type of project. So next slide. If if you take a look, once the project goes through planning and into building, environmental health comes back and rechecks that project. It's possible on a small project like this that they are not involved in the planning phase, but obviously become involved at the building permit phase. So next slide. If you take a look at the total cost to get permits to remodel your house, our planning fee is only $379 out of the $2,871 that somebody pays. So there's opportunities there to streamline by removing one of those review processes during planning. I think you're going to get far more bang for your buck by streamlining the smaller projects than by reducing your planning fee, because here, even if you reduce your planning fee to $1, this is still a $2,500 permit to remodel your bathroom. So last slide. We received a thank Joe for all her comments. I kind of summarized them. She had questions about the rebuild development permit. That's the new permit type that was created by Tyler for the Woolsey, Franklin, and Broad Beach fires. That was discussed and she's comfortable with that. It does not involve structure, period. There was consideration of reducing costs for local businesses. I'm not too sure that we can do that. Unfortunately, I can't have a process by which there is an fairness based on where somebody lives or doesn't live. There was a question about the commencement of construction. We have projects that started in the city that got planning permits, started to build a little bit, and then it stopped. So this fee covers going back out, going through the record to determine whether or not the project was vested, that there was enough work done such that planning entitlement was still valid. There was a question as to whether or not we could eliminate permits entirely, event permits. If it was a residential group under 100 people, that would save some monies. There was an interest in raising the short-term rental fees to $900. We can't just pick an arbitrary number. We can only do the value of our work. So the value of our work is what's set up here for the short-term rental fees. So we can't increase it. That would be improper. The fee waiver for fire victims, we're going, Daniel is nodding his head, he's working on that, and we're hoping to get to the next council meeting with your waiver program. The question also was, is there a way to reduce the fee paid for view preservation to $600 from the current $1,600? So that is an option for you to consider if you want to make that a reduced cost for somebody who has a house who wants to come to planning and preserve their view. There was a request that all projects under 100 square feet should be processed as an over-the-counter permit. That may or may not be possible the way your code is written. You have to literally change the code in some areas because you're addressing unique features of the property that have to be taken into consideration. So it's not the size of the project, it's the impact the project has to your development area. So we could not change the approach, but perhaps change the rate. There were 2 requests to reduce fees for some of the ESD items. I'm not speaking for Yolanda today, but that at your last workshop, you is your funds department does full cost recovery. You do not. So if you were to take a look at the 22 fees we were recommending, your cost recovery deficit would move from $1,051,000 down in the neighborhood of $695,000. So you'd be saving about a little over $350,000. That's my report.
Thank you. I had two questions. I'm sorry, remember what they are. You have a question?
Not at this stage. I want to go through, by the way, I'll just make one quick comment. This spreadsheet, compared to what we had the first time around, much easier to work with.
Good,
Yeah.
good. And we have it, we can put it up and interact with it, so.
Okay, I have two questions before we go to this public comment that we have. Actually, the first question I think is more for Joe, but anyone that wants to chime in. Things like not charging for CUPs or not CUPs, TUPs or reducing the fees substantially. That's not really something no, let me back that up. Maureen's proposal about how we could streamline things. So, that's not before us, right? That's something the city council would have to do, and then we would assess what the fees should be. We're not looking at what the process would be, just what the fees are for the existing process.
Correct. We would have to do internal streamlining, which we've been trying to do ongoing.
Yeah.
Right. But whether that made 100% sense to me or not, that's not something that's within our purview tonight.
Correct.
The only reason I brought it up is to say if you would consider reducing a fee, the impact reducing a planning fee has doesn't do much.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your explaining it to us, but it struck me when I was listening to it, it's like that's not something we can do anything about right now. The other is, I really appreciate that you took the time to go through all this stuff. Speaking for me, I don't think it's incumbent upon you or the staff in general in a report to the city council to have to go through public comments and address all the public comments. If we have concerns about them, we can raise them and ask questions, but you know, that's an unnecessary drain on staff in general. Staff doesn't have to be responding to the public comments when they're doing an analysis. They do what they think is necessary and appropriate. We can ask questions if we want to, because you know Joe's reasonable and a lot of people respect her and she speaks for a lot of people. But every single person that sends a comment to, it would be an enormous drain if we were dealing with that.
It was always my practice to at least summarize the comments that we had considered from the public, so I do it out of habit,
Okay,
but thank you.
sure. So if we have no other questions of staff,
Just
one
one quick
public
question. I want to follow up on the comment about the streamlining. It looked like you'd done some work with the fire department.
Yes,
That didn't require city, didn't require council.
No, no.
There's a lot of this you can do yourself, can't you?
correct. There's certain things, your guardrails are your code. So for example, something like a CUP would require us to make findings on safety. Well, we're not safety specialists, so we have to ask fire, we have to ask geotechnical, we would have to ask about an environmental biological issue. So there won't be streamlining for something like a CUP, but for something like an over-the-counter permit, it's interesting. Your history is over the past 15 years, your review process has pumped up. And Daniel and I reviewed this. Both of us see it the same way, that you can clip a lot of this simply by conditioning it. So you say, oh, you have a bathroom remodeling, you're doing no work to the outside. Good. From a planning standpoint, you can go. Then it moves over into building permit, and that's where the review can occur. Some reason we're doing things twice in a number of areas.
Okay. Yeah, I can tell you from a banking perspective where we have approvals like this, it's the same thing. You're always trying to fix the problem that might have occurred, and nobody ever decides to come back and do a haircut to what's expanded. And I will tell you, when you look at a loan approval that has 16 signatures on it, you can tell that somebody forgot why they were doing all this. And you know, I understand what you're saying.
And sometimes we need those reviews. If you're in an area where you have a delicate resource, yeah, something as simple as an outdoor deck can be very cumbersome. But there are other pieces that we do that I think we would say doesn't make sense to us.
I think we want to encourage you to always look to see where the cost efficiency or the performance efficiency is. And I go back to the banking example. The reason why there's 16 signatures is because everybody's tried to fix a problem in the past, and pretty soon it gets to be this elephant in the room as opposed to this rabbit. So, yeah, understand. Just try to keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. All right, Joe, you want to talk?
Yeah, you guys got the spreadsheet I sent this morning?
I printed it out.
Okay, awesome. I don't have to go through a lot of it, or some of it because of Maureen addressing some things, so I appreciate it. The first one is the CUP. Is there not a way we can have a local discount for residents? I would think that residents should be able to get a discount on resident business owners. It should be, if then we can increase the rate for a non-local owner to either the difference, which is, I think it's 1,988 is the fee that we're proposing. But if the local business can pay $994, then the non-local can pay $2,982, or actually the whole cost, $4,474. Then there will be no money lost in planning. So that's the first one I was suggesting. I don't have to do number 2 because Maureen addressed it. The new residential event minor permit for less than 100 people, that has never had, we've never had that in Malibu. Like I said, with the big rock block party, always was less than 100 people. We never had to apply for a permit. And it would be, to have it be $421 and apply for a permit every time someone wants to have an event for a community that we invite you guys to, would be just an extra step and an extra money grab, I think. But we can charge $2,300 for major events for residents. That's fine. And then number 4 we don't have to do because we already discussed the legal development permit fee. Fine. Thank you, Tyler. The short-term rental permit fee, I don't know. I mean, I just think we don't want to have short-term rentals, so if there's any way to get more money from the permits, why should it be $400? It should be $900. At least that's like I think the average nightly rental of a short-term rental. So if there is a way to raise it, that would be good. And I appreciate that the new temporary housing fee might be waived for fire victims. The view preservation permit is something that has been going on for like almost 9 years now, where residents who owns the view deal with this foliage owner who, this is for actually just the planning commission. If it has to go to the planning commission, it's been tried to be raised to $2,500. It was raised to over $1,600 last year. It used to be, I think, $600 and now, and then $750. It's just too much to bear on a view owner who has to do all the work. Like after 60 days, they have to send one certified letter. Then if they don't get a response, they send another one after 60 days. And then if they don't get a response, they have to try and do mediation with the foliage owner. The foliage owner, it was discussed years ago that they should, oh, is it already 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you kidding? Oh my
I
gosh.
started it
Anyway,
late.
Yeah,
so
I thought it went a while ago too.
and then,
All right.
can I just?
Joe, we have your
You
written
have-
comments, we read your written comments, Maureen went through them, so I think we have enough at this point.
Okay,
So there's no other public comments, that ends public comment, brings it back to us. Doug, you want to talk?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've got to do is figure out how to go through this and make our recommendations. But as I said, this is a much better format. And I have to say the count helped a lot. But I will tell you what my bias is toward this, and somewhat predict what the consensus is. I think on the small projects, and we always use the hot water heater as an example, we got to make that to the point where it is easier to comply than it is to not comply. And putting a token permit fee on it is the best way to do that, and whether it's $50 or whatever. And I understand, I was trying to figure out where exactly that fit in the package here. It doesn't.
We don't have a copy for water heater.
But how do you do permits for the water heater? So it's not a tiny fee for a permit?
It's building permit.
It's a building.
All right, so building
Yeah.
permit, all right, so
So-
that's where we're not gonna see these.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
but you're correct that if you really wanted to help the little guy, that looking at those fees relative to shrinking those would be very helpful.
I think your, Councilmember, your idea, the planning on what you have before you is we look at fences, let's say, that's kind of in the same vein. That's an OC level 1. And so that's where you may say, it's already like $200, but you may say, let's do $50 because should be a no-brainer project.
That's right, and that's the reason why I said the count helped me do it, and I don't know what the definitions are on the left side. It's hard to know exactly what, APR
Yeah,
monitor is.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had great eyesight, but when the lights this dim,
it's hard.
I'm gonna have to get Braille here. No, I think you guys are on the right path, and I think if we can kind of go through maybe where we've got comments, but for the most part, I'm in pretty good shape with what you have here in the recommendations. Although I do think we want to incentivize, where possible, some of the small projects. And I will also say, I appreciate the idea of local and non-local, but I don't think we can discriminate amongst that. It's got to be the same price for everybody. And who's to say that you don't live at your store?
Well, and if that's even legally permissible, you're adding now a new administrative burden that would then change the
I
cost.
think we can.
So, I don't know, I would suggest maybe just go through the whole,
Yeah.
page by page. And I know it's up on the screen, it's actually
I
easier.
can't read the screen.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
better
we
on
were
that.
hoping
Sorry.
to be in the room, but,
A little bit.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, but the one behind me is even better, yeah.
So the first group is admin and review. There are currently 6 levels of that. We're taking a look at recommendations for just the 2 major areas of work there.
So the other ones are being, well, it's up to you if you want to lower them
Yeah.
more. Sorry to cut you
Yeah.
off, Marie. It's really up to you on your recommendation, and we'll take that and go to council. But the only ones that we were showing as increases are the ones that we identify as we thought more significant projects.
Yeah, Doug, if you don't mind, I just want to get a general comment before we go through
Yeah.
one by one.
Sure.
Which is that I'm using Joe because she's the one that spoke, but I hear this from other people as well all the time. Joe used the term money grab, and people talk about profiting. We don't profit. The city does not profit. The city's not looking to make money on any of these permits. We hired at some meaningful cost a consultant who came in and told us what our actual costs are. That's not a perfect exercise. There's some on the edges. Maybe there's some room for argument, but they did a concerted effort to tell us what our costs are for each of these things that our law currently requires permits for and work by the city employees for, and the amounts that are put up are the amounts that it's cost the city. So the city can't charge by law 1 penny more than what it believes its cost to be. There's no money grab, there's no profit. If anything, every place in which we charge less than the amount our consultant tells us we ought to be charging or can charging is a benefit to the people who are benefiting from it. And to that extent, it's a money grab by those people from other people in the city who are paying for it through their tax contribution. So we shouldn't look at it that way. We can, as Maureen does, we can look at it as what are we doing that we don't need to be doing, or can we cut out these services such that the cost would then be less. But we're not overcharging for any services. If anything, we're undercharging for it. I have a question for Joe, if you know the answer on the short-term rental issue. Are we unlimited in what we can charge for the permit for short-term rentals, unlike other permits?
It's
Is
the
that true?
same philosophy.
That's what I thought.
That's what our administrative burden is.
Okay.
And we actually noticed a typo. Joe has the best eyes in recognizing. We're going to have to drop that fee, actually, because it is higher than the actual cost of
Yeah, I mean, I would like nothing more than to regulate STRs by charging higher fees, but I don't think we're allowed to do that. Okay, so with that said, let's go through them.
If I just, while we're talking about short-term rentals for just a second, I know in my past time on the council, I've always looked at short-term rentals as something that needs to be highly quality controlled. I guess that's the right word. And when you look at other places like Palm Springs, San Bernardino County, and the mountains, which Joe and I are familiar with up there, we both have homes up in that area there, and so does many other people here in Malibu. Short-term rentals up there have a very high compliance requirement, and I don't think we do that. And when you look at the other fees, say $900 in San Bernardino, that actually is a fair cost because they're doing regular inspections. They have 24-hour hotlines that they operate, kind of outsourced and so forth. So there's a lot to it. And yes, when you compare it to other cities, we may end up with a lower number, but they put more oomph behind their short-term rentals. And I think if we continue to have them, and we will, we need to expand that compliance and quality control to make sure that it's not a nuisance. They're a fact of life, and we need to make sure that they're not impeding the quality of life. So, all right. Bruce, I'd suggest we just kind of go through these real quick and see if we have any change.
Sure.
So Tyler can take it from here.
Sure, so I guess we'll start with these first three in purple, which purple again is we're recommending a lower fee than what is current, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
Current
already.
or recommended by the matrix study.
Yeah.
So, landscape only is exactly what it sounds like, just landscape. APR minor is a big umbrella for, I think, 35% or less, I should say less than 35% remodel. If you guys recall, our code has a 50% remodel policy where if you go over 50%, it becomes a new structure. So we consider a minor remodel, something under 35%. And then that could also cover a pool, that could cover a deck, that could cover anything that's, a new driveway. There's a lot of things under the umbrella of APR minor, but it's meant to be, those kind of those new structures that you're going to add as an accessory to your home. APR major is the yellow again is. Do you want to stop there, or do you want to move on to yellow?
If it's okay with Bruce, I think if we've got a question, we'll come up with it. Just keep moving on.
The APR major is anything more than a 35% remodel, so now we have to do some very technical analysis into counting these walls correctly, making sure they're not going over that 50% threshold. And this could include a major redevelopment of a site with a lot of site improvements. Maybe they're completely they have a 4-acre site and they're completely redoing their site, and it's a lot of site improvements. We would charge this major fee, and so those are, as we were directed to increase it for the major players, but maybe decrease it for the minor players. That's why those recommendations are in front of you. Archaeology phase 1 is a standard. We have to make a cultural resource finding that this was a Chumash land at one point, and so both CEQA and our local coastal program require us to make a cultural resource finding. And so if you're doing any new excavation outside of a developed area on the property, you need to do an archaeology report, and people have complained about this fee. Yeah, we need it to meet the law, but the little guy will complain that it's just another burden on them, even though it's required by law. Going down to biology, these again are major players. You have development that includes impacts to ESHA. You have development that exceeds. These are CDPs, and so these are projects that are extensive, major. It requires noticing. It requires some type of communication with the Coastal Commission, a lot of communication with the public at large, and so those are again major projects that we're proposing to increase to try to get back our cost recovery. Our CAT exemptions, we need those for basically every project that we're deeming exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and that's just trying to get our money back because that is a standard fee on every project. Going down to coastal development again, levels 1, 2, and 3 are minor coastal development permits. I guess you could say that term does not exist, but you could using the APR and the APR major and minor kind of terminology. Coastal development permit level 1, 2, and 3, again, water wells, accessory. If you were going to do an ADU, you'd be charged that level 3 fee there. If you're doing a lot line adjustment with no development, it's not as much work, and so those are justifiable. Now, when people build their homes, I think we've talked about this, most people who are developing a lot for the first time are maximizing it for the most part, and so it does require a lot of work. There's obviously, you guys have seen many appeals that we deal with. There's a lot of neighbor concerns, and we're constantly dealing with a lot of administrative time just for a standard new single-family home. And then anything above new single-family home are kind of major developments. Tentative parcel map is like a subdivision, and lot line adjustments, parcel maps again. Those are more major, more than just your single parcel development. And so those are requested to be higher, closer to the cost recovery. Keep going, please. These ones are code violations, major and minor. Again, similar to the minor and major theme, we want to kind of increase our cost recovery on these code violations. Code violations take a lot of time. They take not only the code enforcement team's time, they take the planning department's time, they take the building inspector's time. They take a lot of people's time, and so we're asking for cost recovery on those.
Tyler, what's the difference between a minor and a major? And I won't go back to the one from last summer, but I think it was $1,700 was what the fee was, the penalty was. That seemed like that would be a major code
So
violation.
I don't think we had a minor and major before, right? Did we always have a minor and major before? I think we only had one
It's
standard.
an, it's an
I think we
existing.
had one standard fee a couple of years ago, but I believe it's like the minor ones would be something at the OC level or APR minor level.
Like a single family home, so that was an event at a single family home. And so if you're just throwing a party in that case, or if you built your pool without a permit, then you might get a minor fee. If you are a big commercial development, like a shopping center, and you've done something very substantial that was a code violation, then you would get a major fee.
It would seem like we're not, it would be more expensive to process a major than this $5,000 or $6,000.
What you're also doing, that would be in addition to whatever fees you had to repair what you damaged.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So let's say you take out a dune on the beach. You're paying to repair the dune, you're paying that fee for your
Right. You're
violation.
paying the
you're
permit fees
paying-
to do that.
So this is the icing on top of the other.
Correct.
Got it. All right.
This is only the fee paid if it turns out you are in violation?
Yes,
If a violation is issued, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All good? Okay. Demolition permit fee, this is a fee that we're aiming to, or requesting to reduce. Basically, again, going back to the little guy theme, this is a common permit that's required on any remodel. So whether it's 35% or not, this is required per our code if you're doing any demolition, or if you're just removing, let's say you want to remove your pool, or you want to remove your trellis or something, these demolition permits are required. So asking that to be lowered. Going to event permits. Now, I want to address one thing.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
go back up to the commencement of construction. Is that the restarting construction fee you were talking about, or is this?
no,
So this is
but it,
this is a vesting fee. So other cities use the term vesting. That means that you've already been issued a building permit, but you've started construction,
Okay,
and your project is now vested, so it can't expire in a sense.
okay,
This is the same term, but we use, our code uses the term commencement.
okay. Because I'd seen vested before. Okay, now I got it. Well, where do we have the part about where you stop construction and you restart it or whatever? Is that,
if you're, it's a complicated issue because we have a project right now that began work 20 years ago. They started building, they stopped. They want now to have a determination that they commenced construction. Well, your building plans aren't good enough. Your roadway is, all of the other pieces that have come because of the fires all need to be redesigned. So you can issue this determination to say, yes, you began construction and you may now continue with the building permit, but you gotta go back to your original project, no changes. So it's odd that people ask for this, but they're trying to, I think, sell a project and they want a piece of paper from the city, and these are tricky.
all right, well, the tricky part, let me ask you an example. Near my neighborhood, there's a house that started construction in 2016, and they have started and stopped and started and stopped. Is this to define when they started again, or is this to certify when they started the first time in 2016?
This is to certify that your planning entitlement
In
to
twenty
build
sixteen,
is still valid.
yeah.
In
It is
2016.
it now runs with the land.
So their building permits may expire, but they do not have to go back through the planning process because their project has been vested. They may have to come into compliance with the new building code requirements, but their project in a sense is vested, so they don't need to get another CUP for that.
So it only costs $396 to do that?
Now,
No, it was 19.
Oh, 19.
That's for the
Oh,
assessment
it's
by
not about that.
Marine
Okay.
or the planning director to determine that your project is met. So it's
Right.
actually not a
So
lot of
the-
time.
it's a new fee, so it's recommended at almost 2019.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I glanced up at it wrong. Got it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm good to go.
Ready for events?
Yes.
Okay, I do want to address one thing Joe said. We don't, the code does not require you to get a special event permit if you're less than 100 people and you own the property. Now, if I rented out the property and I have 50 people, that requires a special event permit. That's why that's there. So I just want to say, that's why your event don't require a permit, yeah.
I thought you had to have an SCP, whether you've owned the property or not.
If you're the owner and you're throwing the party, let's say you're throwing a party for your daughter and it's less than 100 people, you do not need to get an event permit from the city. Now, if you rent that out to Bruce and Bruce throws a party for his daughter and he has 20 people, you need to get a permit for it.
Bruce's parties are too wild. Okay.
Makes sense? Okay. So, you guys have seen some of these events get tricky and so we're asking for a full cost recovery on these because it's a lot more time than the $100 we've been charging. Especially these, that Broad Beach one that got a little out of hand. Similar temporary use permits are for commercial properties, and it's very similar. When you do a temporary use permit with a CEP, like the chili cook-off, for example, we're only charging $821, and actually they're nonprofit, so they only get charged $342, but it's a full CEP, and we go through extensive amount of work on projects like that. Another one was the Jazz Fest, where there was so much back and forth with the public and the applicant, and the 821 just does not cover the time. It's really like a full CDP that we're putting in effort for.
So, leaving aside trying to help local businesses right now, but just putting that out of the equation for the moment, why would we not just seek to recover why would we not recover our full cost for a
I mean, the 3,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if the law, I'm going to say this with respect to everything, if the law requires that be done, we're not inclined to change the law. If the law requires it and we have to process it, and that's what it costs, why are we not charging?
The question is your fee so high that somebody skirts the issue but doesn't get the permit and says, screw it, I'm just going to have my event. And the problem with this when it comes to code compliance is that the event is done, the impact has happened. Now you're trying to recover from that. And we would rather pull somebody in to try to get them to get the permits so we understand what's happening, so the neighbors can know, so you don't have community disruption.
I would say there is a little guy theme to this as well, where you don't want to penalize the small mom and pop who are having their event because they need to get a TUP too. That's kind of just a part of the equation when we thought about this.
Are we allowed to have multiple level fees for the same permit and put conditions on when you get less, when you pay less?
Yes.
So like we could, hypothetically, we could say a TUP is going to cost whatever that number was. Which one is, I've lost the line.
Commercial TUP, it's now going to be 821.
No, what's the real cost?
3,000.
3,000.
Yeah, so we could say like a TUP is going to be $3,000, but if it's for a nonprofit, it'll be reduced to X. If it's for a
That's what that
local business that has less than 50 people that are gonna show up, it's reduced to Y, that, we could do those kinds of
That,
things.
yes, that's why you're getting multiple layers for event.
I see that.
You're gonna see a good model of this with the fee waivers that's coming through, and we also got the TUP procedural administrative stuff coming back to you too, so you'll see kind of a good model.
So like, a perfect example of what road races. Yeah, you're right, people could skirt it, but it's pretty difficult to do a road race that's not gonna get caught and stopped by the sheriff and subject to somebody to substantial fines. So we only are allowed to have 2 road races a year, and we decide what they're gonna be by city council decisions. Why wouldn't we charge them the full fee? Is that because we know who they are, we're approving them, and we don't want to discourage them from having those road races?
It's up to you. I mean, now,
Is that the theory behind that?
that's just the current practice that it's been, and so,
And you're only getting 2 of those years.
yeah, those are
So-
community events, and we don't
Right.
want to discourage.
Okay. But let me say, that I've been, my thinking on this has come around to a different place. I tend to think at this point that charging less than our city's actual cost is providing disproportionate benefits to the people that get the discounted fee versus the 90% of the city that doesn't incur any costs and is paying for it. And I'm not sure why, without fee-specific reasons, we would be doing that, like if it was to encourage a specific type of thing. Nonetheless, I'll be inclined, any fee you want to charge, any fee you want to recommend that's less than the full recovery, I'll go along with it. But I'd be inclined to just start off by fully recovering everything and then just reducing ones that there's some super special reason for.
That's my philosophy too. That's the reason why I've got a list of ones here that I think I'll get. On the road race, there's only 2, and we waive them all the time. I mean, for optics, we could put it at like $6,300, but we're never going to waive it.
We don't waive it for the road races, I don't think. Those are, I mean, one of them's for profit.
But one of them's a non-profit.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Kristen's not here, but I do believe there are a couple events that get after fee waivers, right?
There's a number of nonprofit events that come through, and we.
But there's only 2 road races. There's the triathlon and there's the half marathon. And they both make a lot of money. They donate money to people after they're done. So it's not like the city should be suffering a loss on the permit.
Yeah, I was taken back by the fact there's only 2, but you know, for the optics and trying to be fair, I agree with you. I think maybe we ought to put that at 6,000 and just look at it in the future as being a wait time.
I mean, as it is, the majority of the residents don't like us having them. So it's not like I feel bad charging them what it costs us to let them have it.
So just for the road races, or not for the regular events, right?
Well, I've got a question on the TUPs. Take for instance Trancas that has request in for 12 events during the summer. Is this one fee or an event for every event? How do you price for every
Permit
event?
fee for every event.
So every time they hold one, it's a
Yeah.
cash register with rings for $800.
They did get a CUP though, so I should say that, so they got a specific permission last year to have those 12 events, so that's not covered in the TUP.
That's right.
Okay, so the CDP covered.
CUP.
But if you have we had an issue, Joe knows about this issue. A person set up a business in a parking area because they were displaced, but they didn't have a permit, so they were issued a violation notice, told to come in and get the TUP. The TUP was $805.821, but it expired every 30 days, I think. So they applied for a CDP, coastal development permit, to have their shop set up in this parking lot. And that tolls their need to have this continuous TUP. So one thing you can consider is changing the process instead of changing the fee. so that if you have a continuing need for a TUP, let's say you have Christmas tree laws, the classic, right? Used to be just in December, now the thing starts with pumpkins in October, right? So you could have a quarterly fee to cover that. That would probably work just as well. Because it doesn't help us to constantly issue these when there's an easier process.
Well, how would you do that? Would you just say you can have a quarterly, instead of $821, you have a quarterly fee of, say, $2,000 or something?
Yeah.
That's what you want to do?
Yeah. If somebody needed it for an extended period of time, yes.
We're only allowed for up to
The code
14
only
days.
allows it for 14 days, yeah.
14 days.
But in the seasonal period of Marina's mentioned, you can get up to 30 days for those seasonal events.
That's in this, okay. But
Like that's why the Christmas tree lot can be there for more than 14.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned 14 days, I remember that that's there. So we wouldn't be able to do a quarterly fee unless we change the requirements or the permissions to be more than 14 days, right?
So another thing that's happened, and this is kind of maybe off topic, but series of events has happened where you have 14 days, right, to have your event. Someone will have back-to-back weekends, and there's been kind of inconsistency. We kind of put stop to that internally because it was getting out of hand. But people were doing this back-to-back weekend, almost getting 2 for 1 in terms of a permit.
There was one that was going for 7 different events over the course of 2 weeks, and called it an event.
So I think, yeah, after some of these got out of hand, we changed our policies, and now each weekend needs its own event permit. But that was a policy thing to Marines.
It doesn't sound like we're going to solve this with the fee,
No.
but
No, but see, I'd be inclined, again, I think we need to do, some, separate and apart from this is what we're gonna do for small business to help them get over the hump. Because you can't be charging people $3,000 right now to try to bring business in. But as a permanent matter, I'd be said, TUPs are something that, special events and temporary events cause a lot of consternation among our residents in general. More often than not, they're for non-residents, or it's bringing business from outside the city, and that's why they cause consternation for residents. And I'm not inclined, therefore, to give people a break to get a permit to do something that most of the residents don't want them to do. The law gives them the right to do up to a certain amount, so long as they go through the right hoops. I don't want to make it easier for them, other than to try to bring business back right now. But so I'd say recommend charging for a TUP what it costs us to process a TUP. These are commercial businesses. This is not. We're already giving a break if it's for a nonprofit.
right. Yeah, I think you've got a good point there. Let's maybe make it a round number of $3,000.
Or even 2,500 at least. It's a pretty big bump up.
I just want to add, because it's us that hear about this stuff, right? And so what happens is the mom and pops are the ones that are going to, it's not going to affect Nobu and them, right? This is not going to affect, of course, we can easily get that money back, but like, let's say, I'm trying to think of a
So
business.
can we do like a different fee for something that wouldn't fit within the formula of retail, that kind of thing? That's what I was getting at before. So like if you're a unique business to Malibu, your fee would be substantially reduced. If you're a
So
chain,
maybe if it's a shopping center or not a shopping center or a chain,
Yeah.
shopping centers and chains, and then
pay the full freight, and a local closely held business gets a huge discount.
Yeah, you're using the phrase formula retail.
Yeah.
So formula retail store, they would pay the $3,000,
Right.
and the $800 would be for the non-formula.
Yes. Or
And the-
500.
Yeah.
Or 250.
And here's the other thing, I use the phrase, you gotta keep these guys alive at 25, all right? So I think whatever we put up here, we need to come back to the city council and have a waiver for
I agree.
25.
you probably want to extend that to not only if you have a formula retail permit, but those that would otherwise qualify for formula retail, because there
I
was.
was using that as a shorthand.
Yeah,
what I
with
meant.
that, I just want to make it, because there's some businesses that, didn't have to get a formula retail permit because they were grandfathered in.
No, right, I was thinking in terms of you, in the fee schedule, you would identify the description of the type of business that would have to pay the full freight, and you describe the type of business that gets the lower one.
Where she's got-
So it wouldn't like this new shopping center we have,
Mhm.
they're excused from the formula retail law up to a
Right.
certain percentage.
Okay.
But if they've got a tenant who is a formula retail tenant, they pay the full freight for a TUP. If they've got a small ice cream parlor that's owned by someone in Malibu or even
Yeah.
someone,
Right.
then they would get the lower fee.
Yeah, I think it's already been inserted in there, and I like the idea of formula retail.
Does that work, Joe, or you have
Yeah.
a argument with that?
No, it's probably possible. I think we're just gonna have to, after the,
That's
after this,
wording.
well, and after the
Yeah.
recommendation here, confirm that it's
Right.
allowable with our legal team. And then I think for any fee, because I think it makes sense, you wanna set the new fees going forward in the fee schedule, but we could have a moratorium,
Yes.
or, you know, a break for the next year. I'm
Right.
looking at Rob DeBoe, the Public Works Director.
I
I'm
know,
looking at Renee, just to see, you know, how we do the budget. I mean, I'm sure we could come back the next year when we do
Yeah.
fees
And I-
and replace it.
and I know a little bit the law. I mean, we have pretty wide flexibility when it comes to this kind of, you
Yeah.
can't
Just have to
discriminate
recover the
between
cost.
local and non-local business, but you clearly could discriminate based on
Size.
being part of a chain versus being a privately owned
And
company.
you can also
Okay.
take a look at things like a shopping center.
Yes,
So-
right, as
so
long as it's got a
it's
rational
some-
basis
right.
and it's not
Right.
discriminatory in a, you know, either
Got it.
single.
Well, why don't we put in $2,500 might be a good number for that, if you're comfortable with it for the formula retail.
No, let's go to 3 if it's gonna be for the formula retail,
Okay.
and let's go even lower if it's gonna be for a, non-formula retail, like 250 or 500.
I don't want to get too easy.
Just wanna keep it at the,
Maybe 500, that's fine. Yeah, 500.
How about 750?
Or 750.
going once,
750.
going once.
750, take 750.
And then, do you want the full 30, 45 for formula retail, since that's full cost recovery?
Well, Doug's idea was let's just make it a round number that's close to it.
Got it.
I mean, it's cost accounting, and I know that you're here to represent the company. It's,
I like
it's
round
a,
numbers.
it's a range.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I remember my cost accounting class in B school. It's open to interpretation.
Well, I thought I saw on this page earlier the cannabis shops. We only have one right now, right? And I think it was actually for new ones anyway.
Yes.
Were we charging full recovery there?
So do you control that?
It's on the previous page, the bottom of the previous
Yeah,
page.
there it is.